Good afternoon. I am calling to order the board meeting for the Northeast Ohio Sustainable Communities Consortium. Today is Tuesday, November 19th, and we are at the Akron Urban League. I'd like to welcome any elected officials. I think we have none, other than the ones who are already part of our board. Let's introduce the consortium members. I'll start. I am Grace Scalucci. I am the chair of NEOSCC as well as the executive director for NOACA. Hunter?
Hunter Morrison, executive director of NEOSCC.
Mike Nichols, NEOSCC.
Steve Hambley, Medina County Commissioner and Treasurer.
Ed Juris, Director of Regional Collaboration for Cuyahoga County.
Rachel McCarty with Eastgate Regional Council of Governments.
Joe Hadley, Executive Director of DEFCO.
Janice Schweitzer, Ashland County.
Bill Davignon, City of Youngstown.
John Getchy, Eastgate Regional Council.
Bob Now, Stark Regional Planning.
Great, thank you. I don't seem to have anyone signed up for public comment, but just to verify, no one did public comment? Okay. For action, we have one item for action, and that's the approval of the meeting minutes for September 24th, 2013 and October 22nd, 2013. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Did we want to take this up?
Great, so we've got a first, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have for discussion objectives for December and January watch list. Hunter?
Yeah, let me come up and give you
Okay, then moving on to the next item, the executive committee update. First, we have the resolution regarding the future. That was included in the full board packet. We had a very spirited discussion at the executive committee, and that's probably an understatement. But I'm proud to announce that the discussion ended up in a proposal to make some amendments at the table. And so the executive committee worked very hard with the document up on the screen and made the amendments. And so we have a document that now is different than the one that was in your packet. Basically, the now therefore be it resolved sections are different. That's the primary change, as well as the header is more definitive. We were wanting to make sure that the executive committee supported it entirely or with a consensus before moving it to the full board. And at this point, we do have a very strong consensus. So what I would propose is that this be sent out to the board members immediately, but it really wouldn't be on the agenda for adoption until December. That was the proposed schedule. And had we adopted it as is, we might have tried to push it up to today. But really, I think it's important to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to look at the changes and to feel comfortable and confident that that is something they can support. Any specific questions or comments? Anything from the executive committee members? Okay, great. Board action on vision in December and February.
I think we've covered that, yeah.
The HUD extension dates, Hunter?
We have been in discussion with Steve Cerny at HUD. We originally had proposed in correspondence before the shutdown for a 6-month extension, which would take us basically through July of next year. He did receive some pushback. There's pretty rigid requirements on extensions. We've agreed on a 5-month extension, which takes us to June, and I've resubmitted our request on that, and that Steve is working on that. He's indicated that a 30 or 60 or 90-day extension is highly likely going out to June. He's very much going to advocate for it, and we'll keep you informed. I've informed him of the urgency to move this forward. Grace and Emma and I will be in D.C. for the HUD convening. I would hope by that point we could resolve any questions that he may have. So we're looking to do a no-cost extension with staff at a reduced level, as it currently is, until the end of June.
Okay, great. The next item is the status of the fund match grant. Staff has put together and sent a proposal to the fund for the use and the drawdown of the remaining $283,000 commitment. And I have been in very positive and productive discussions with the fund representatives about the best way to utilize those funds to ensure that the organization's objectives are met. And looking at our existing funding, and particularly with the notation of the potential extension from HUD, looking at what expenses really are not covered that we absolutely have to have for NEOSC 1.0, but then perhaps better thinking about the utilizations of those funds in NEOSC 2.0 and thinking about that might be the best way to leverage the funds to look towards implementing what we have come forth in NEOSC 1.0 with. So again, we're having very positive and productive discussions on how to best come up with a proposal to utilize the funds that remain on the grant match. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Do you have any proposed time frame on
Yes, I hope to have the resolution to bring to you in December for that. We are looking at wrapping up some information that's needed for the fund to make some final decisions this week. And then, again, if I know anything earlier than next month, we could probably put it out in packages or send out the information. Sure. Okay, the next item, 2014 board meeting schedule, annual meeting. I believe that is in your packet and basically represents a continuation of the existing framework of the schedule for both executive committee meetings and the board meeting. But I do need to add the notation, of course, that this is the existing NEOSC 1.0, and so as the organization transitions to its next phase, we should and would look to perhaps review that schedule to ensure that it's meeting the needs of the new organization. And you know, we've talked about perhaps moving the meetings to a quarterly schedule, for example, but those will be revisited. But as of right now, it's the existing schedule framework. Any questions or comments? Okay, leverage match presentation, Sarah. But
So,
Sarah, I do want to add, though, even though we will be meeting the match, it's still very important for those of you who either haven't reported or to continue to report. It's okay to overmatch. I mean, we'd rather show that we have the commitment to the project, to the program, and particularly to demonstrate that as we move forward to the NEOSC 2.0.
not sure who went first.
Just real quick, I know we way overmatched this, and then they changed the rules with respect to the MPOs. We're still going to meet the minimum match. We're pretty comfortable. We've got documentation that down the road that we've got stuff from HUD that everything's.
Oh yeah,
Could I get a copy of that?
Thank you. And again, I encourage everyone to ensure that they're up to date. I find it, quite frankly, hard to believe that only 2/3 of the consortium agreements are being met. I think a lot of it just is the time or the other contributions, such as facilities for meetings and such, haven't been fully accounted for.
Yeah, and one of the things that, to Grace's point, is that we did work with HUD and kept asking the question over and over about, can we use a general rate for the consortium? They finally did say back in the spring that we could. So I've gone through and calculated that out for the consortium, so that if you have people where, you know, to fill out this form, you need to know people's rate information. But if you know that you sent someone to the open houses and they were there for 3 hours, just send a list of their name and the location, and we can apply the general rate to it and give you credit for that time. That was also part of the request from the email back on the 5th, was that if you did have those, just send the listing and then do the work on our end to plug that all in so that people can count those hours, because I know it's administratively difficult to go through and find all that rate information, fill out the form. So.
And Sarah, the facilities, for example, for the public meetings are counted as part of the match too.
Right.
Have those all been included? Or
On a lot of the match forms, they are listed out. There's some that don't have the rate information on what the space would be rented out for another group. So if that is something that you did donate space for and hadn't reported it yet, that can be amended.
And I think we should, as staff, look at those, and clearly we can see if what facilities we used and did they report those facilities, and kind of, you know, nudge them a little bit to fill out the documentation.
Right, and that's why at least the historical meeting attendance for work streams, working groups, board meetings, executive committee meetings is all logged and accessible on Glass Cube, so that if you lost track of your calendar or you're not sure, you can go back and use those as tools as well.
Great. So the next item is the regional data GIS sharing feasibility analysis, and again, that's Sarah. Very good point. Any other questions or comments? Okay, great. Then moving on for information, the standing committee reports were either in the package attached or there was no business conducted. Anything that the technical steering committee folks would like to bring to the attention of the full board, or any questions or comments on any of the other items within the standing committee reports?
I would just like to thank the members of the Technical Steering Committee for taking the time last week to really go over the recommendations and all the input that came from various sources, as I reviewed earlier, and come forward with a set of, I think, well-balanced recommendations and initiatives, and worry very carefully about the language that we were using and making sure that intent and practicality were foremost. So, again, I appreciate all the time that you all spent on that task.
And moving down to organization, again, starting with the progress and status of products. Sarah, do we have any update that you wanted to give us on that?
We were waiting on the finalization for the recommendations and initiatives. We have those.
Sarah, why don't you go up to the microphone?
Yeah, please.
And Sarah, in discussion with some of the board members, I think it would be helpful, and in fact, Hunter and I were going to talk to you after this meeting. I think it would be helpful to put together both an executive summary and the detailed compilation of all that's been done to that sort. And you did say separate as well as interwoven into the report, but at this point in time, even while it's still draft, to perhaps circulate amongst the board members so they're clear on what's been done versus what hasn't been done, because there's still a little bit of ambiguity on how much we were able to finish with those products versus how much we were really just teeing up for the NEOSC 2.0.
Okay.
And then the next items, the month-end financial report. Did you have anything to add to that, Emma? Okay, thank you. Open and pending contract update, I guess you kind of just stated that. Leverage match report, we had a presentation from Sarah earlier on that. So then moving along to old business. Does anyone have any old business to bring up? Mike? Very good point. I do want to mention that we did, as part of the new resolution, change the, I guess, the definition of who will be conducting the work related to finalizing the transition to the new 2.0 NEOSC organization. And although the Futures Committee did a terrific job putting together the recommendations for the future organization, the Executive Committee thought it was best to have the entire Executive Committee be responsible at this point for executing that plan for transition. And in addition to the Executive Committee, we did want to make sure to let the full board know that it is open to board members. So if any board members are interested in participating in the development of the transition from NEOSC 1.0 to 2.0, and when I say the transition, meaning the finalization of the tasks associated with the development of the plan itself, as well as the structure of the organization, as well as the actual transition plan going from this office to that office, or this structure to that structure. So if any of you are interested in working on that committee, please let me know, and we will make sure that you're included in the email discussions and or meeting notices in the future. So to Mike's specific question, what we're asking the board to approve in December, and I'll sum it up by just reading very quickly the three sections in the resolution, is Section 1 states the existing NEOSC board desires to continue to serve as a nonprofit corporation post-HUD grant formed to create a collaborative community of practice to establish a more vibrant, resilient, and sustainable Northeast Ohio. So really what we were doing here was affirming that what we have done to date is a worthwhile venture, and we would like to continue in that vein. Section 2 states NEOSC's Board of Directors thanks the Futures Committee for their work to date and accepts its findings and recommendations for an aspirational conceptual framework with details to be further defined and agreed upon in the coming months. And then Section 3, NEOSC's Board of Directors directs the Executive Committee to carry out the recommended tasks and timeline required to transition to NEOSC 2.0. That's what we will be asking for the full board to adopt in December, but in the meantime, I would suggest that I don't think there's anything wrong with us starting to think about how we want to approach some of these items, and perhaps having some discussion on how we begin to coordinate these items, so that when the board does give us the opportunity to move forward, we're ready to do that. David? Exactly, and quite frankly, that is some of the discussion that I mentioned earlier that we're having with the fund relative to their match is, what is the best way to use it, and looking at what we have our needs now for versus what the organization in the future has needs for, and how best to leverage that. It is something that is helpful that we come to conclusion on sooner rather than later. Jason? Yeah, actually, the Futures Committee timeline was with the thought that we would have approved the structure and the advancement of the organization back in October, and there were some delays. I know because both at the full board and at the executive committee, there was not yet consensus and comfort with that, so we delayed that. So we may actually need to revisit the timeline to make sure that we get to where we need to be by when we need to get there, but that we're not starting off already behind the 8 ball. But we are very cognizant of, at the end of this year, December 31st, without any kind of extension from HUD, the finances of the organization will no longer support the organization. So at that point, we become a volunteer organization that is driven by board work and not staff work. Any other questions or comments on that? Then new business.
One piece of new business, Madam Chair. The city of Kent has indicated an interest in joining us, and I think we've informed them that just in terms of NEOS 1.0, it's a little late in the game. But I know, Jason, you've been in communication with the Kent folks.
Well, not yet.
Well, we're going to. Okay, you're right, but they're members of your board, as I recall.
Right.
So I think Jason and I have talked about getting with them and talking about how they can be involved, certainly in going forward. But it does open up an interesting question of whether a community like Kent, which wants to perhaps endorse, accept, utilize the findings of Vibrant Neo, can be on record as doing so. So I think with the sufferance of the board, I think we'll have some discussions with them, perhaps to address their concerns, but that might open up some possibilities for communities. Warren, for instance, the mayor and Warren attended a number of our sessions, but they elected early on simply because of the match requirement not to become full members. But I fully expect that they would want to endorse the findings based on what Mayor Franklin has said. So we may want to have that discussion as a board going forward for a group of fellow travelers in this particular journey.
Jason? Also relative to new business, So, also relative to new business, I'm pleased to say that I've been contacted, unsolicited, by many organizations who, for whatever reasons, did not really know about NEOSC, were unaware of the work that was being done until recently, and so have become very interested in what we've done and have requested either presentations to their groups or further information about membership in NEOSC 2.0. Been approached by some members of the business community who want to be involved in NEOSC 2.0 and have been particularly asking about what is going to be our plan for seating those people on the board and how would we go about seeking them and such. So that's very good news that it's disappointing to say that they didn't know we even existed until recently, but that also means that the final information that is being put out there in terms of the situation that Northeast Ohio is facing, and now perhaps the ways to ensure our vibrancy, resiliency, sustainability is echoing. I mean, it's reaching people, and they're interested, and I think it speaks volumes for where we want to go to in terms of NEOSC 2.0. And I will say that there is that excitement, and we need to capitalize upon that excitement. And so for your organizations, if even though we all have been part of it, to the extent our organization, in terms of either board members or other kinds of affiliations, would like presentations, would like more information, please give us a call, give Hunter a call, and we will schedule them. But yeah, I've been contacted for lunch and learns and for other kinds of things. People want to get on the bandwagon, so that's very, very good news. Lucy? I think the way it was presented to me was that depends on how we structure the board and how we involve the business community. And if we do it right, it'll come with money. If we don't do it right, then it won't come with money.
They have Bitcoin.
So,
Nothing's new.
yeah. So which is, again, to David's point, which is why we really have to be very thoughtful and deliberate in terms of putting together the NEOSC 2.0 structure and making sure that we're meeting the deadlines, particularly for the point where we have no money left in terms of operating. Anything else in terms of new business? Then I will just say that December might be a long meeting. So we'll make up for the fact that this meeting will probably be close to half an hour early. So in December, we'll probably have a longer meeting to make sure that we get through all that we need to get through as we're beginning to close out the HUD grant and move towards adoption of the vision. And then also, if folks are interested in a holiday get-together after the December meeting, certainly we could put some plans together to meet somewhere.
We'll put Jason in charge of the party committee.
That's how I roll.
Okay, we have the volunteer. Fred?
I can set a bar if y'all smack some.
Okay.
Cash one.
Okay.
I think the Akron contingent has agreed to become the holiday party committee.
Terrific. Okay, any other questions, comments before closing? Then do I have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion to adjourn? Adjourned?